Hello and welcome back everyone to Master Blender 3D with Wild West environment. And last lesson we got ourselves some slanted roofs, and now we're going to continue on moving with the Greybox, making sure it's nicely set up and we get ourselves an overall nice feel for the backside. One of the backside areas, even though it's the front, but the backside will also be visible with it, is going to be this part at the top over here. If we look at it, we're going to have a roof over here. So even though this is only a gray box, it is good to have those slanted surfaces, just like with the roofs we had here. And it's actually quite simple to do. All we got to do is just make sure we duplicate this like so. Then, well, let's scale it down first to a reasonable amount. Let's say this seems to be quite all right. Afterwards, we can go into edit mode, select the top, just scale it down like so. And that's all we need to do, and scale it up a little bit just so we could have a bit of an angle coming out from the side. And actually, let me just go ahead and check real quick. I think I made it too big for this. So this was 3.5, and we had an extra almost an entire meter for the top. So closer to a half actually. So yeah, let's go ahead and see that. So yeah, 3.5. Just like that, and almost a meter. So this one will be something closer to this. We can even compare it actually. If we put it one next to each other, just like that, we can totally just compare it. And that seems to be all right. Okay, we don't need to touch it anymore other than that. For now, that is. The next thing that I like to talk about is in regards, well, to slanting. Other than roofs, like these ones over here, we're also going to have the support. So if we have a look at the support over here, it's not exactly straight. It is going in an angle. So let's go ahead and work with that. And actually, if you'll notice, this part over here is quite an interesting one because I'm not sure if it's visible. It's basically going to have only one side of support to the side. Let me just explain you what I mean by that. If we want to go ahead and make all of these go outwards, we can totally do so. We can go ahead and just select all of them at once. And then with all of them selected, we can go on to edit mode by hitting tab. Then let's go ahead and click free to make sure we are within the face selection. And we're going to go ahead and actually double click A, which will unselect everything. So clicking A once will select everything. Double tapping it will deselect everything. And I'm just going to go ahead and select all of these pieces at the bottom, just like that. Now, when we click S, we should be scaling it outwards, like so. So this is a good base for a gray box. I think that's a good foundation. And as you can see, the outwards parts are looking pretty good. These supports over here on the side are not looking so good. So what is happening with that? Well, if I was to click Ctrl Z, the reason being is that because they're going outwards, and if we want to keep the same style, we got to consider how they're going to be looking when it's connected to the building. So what I'd like to do, instead of just scaling it upwards like so, I'm going to make a quick duplicate out of this. So GY, just put it off to the side. The reason I'm doing this is because we can select these like we did previously, scale them outwards just to get them angled properly. Because we're using median point and we have all four of them selected, it's going to be scaling outwards from the centerpiece and giving us that nice angle going outwards like that. Afterwards, we can go ahead and select these two, just delete it. And the reason we had the duplicate over here is because we have now nice, perfect type of a setup for going upwards just like that. We might even make this quite a bit bulkier as well. Let's go ahead and click S, then Shift Z, just make it a little bit bulkier like so. And just like that, we're going to get ourselves a nice setup. Afterwards, we're going to try to connect this to extra supports and whatnot, which we can work our way down the line. But for now though, let's go ahead and consider this overall structure. So I think it can be like going a little bit inwards, like so. It doesn't need to go outwards too much. I think that's going to be quite all right. And I'm going to duplicate this to the other side as well, just like that, to make sure we're consistent with the setup. I think that's quite okay. And at this point, we can start thinking about the upper section of the roof. So we do want to have this, well, let me hold on a second, this part at the top, so the frame that goes around it, if we look at it from the side view, it helps us cover the section from the side of the frame, that is. So I think that's going to help us out to just break up the overall squarish shape that we have so far. What is the easiest way to do that? The easiest way, and I think the least time consuming way at the moment for the Greybox would be to just simply duplicate this, bring this outwards, click RY, which will allow us to rotate it in Y axis. And then instead of rotating it with my mouse, I'm going to type in 90, like so. And that's going to give me the nice setup. And in this particular case, I'm just going to go ahead and just tweak this setup. Maybe make this a little bit larger as well. Yeah, I'll probably do that. So I'm going to click S. In this case, X is going to be the axis. By the way, I'm looking at the top right hand corner. So this one's over here. So I can see that it's going to the left side is the X axis, which we don't want to scale up, or in this case, we do want to scale it up a little bit, but we don't want to scale it up in regards to it inflating the object. Basically, we want to make sure it's scaled up to make it thicker. We're going to click S, Shift X, and just do what we did with the Z value, with the Z axis, just upscale it a little bit. Like so, I think that's quite all right. Maybe SZ a little bit as well, to make sure we get a nice type of a support. I think that's looking quite all right, actually. I'm going to go ahead and just duplicate it to the other side, like so. Keeping it simple, keeping it basic. All in all, I think that's going to be quite all right. Just like that. And I'm going to go ahead and just click Shift D, RZ 90. That's going to just rotate it completely to that angle. Going to click SY and scale it downwards like so. And then just reposition them each individually, just like that. All right, so we're getting somewhere. I'm going to maybe just slow them just a little bit so we can have a separation between those two, between the vertical and horizontal logs going on the top. And yeah, that's looking pretty good so far. Okay, so in regards to the supports, we talked a little bit in regards to these supports because we want to make sure we support the tower over here. It's going to help us support the overall water tank at the top. But we can also use this as a framework for the house, for the tavern, that is. So we can just, I'm just going to make this go inwards just a little bit, like so, to make sure we don't have these sticking out. We're going to basically get these out onto the other side as well. Let's go ahead and do that. I'm just going to duplicate it, move them outwards like so, and I think that's going to look quite nice overall. Bring them inwards even more. There we go. So that's looking pretty good. I think I'll just make sure that this sticks out just a little bit more, like so. All right, all in all, nice stuff. We got some overall nice structure coming up for the upper section. So that is looking pretty good. I do want to set up now the quick supports for this overall water tower. And the reason being is that it just allows me to see how much of the visual way of breaking, let's say, for this overall silhouette we can do. And what I mean by that, well, let's go ahead and just do it right away. I'm going to duplicate this corner over here, just so we could have a nice small plank. I'm going to click RY90, just to rotate it to the side, SX, and just scale it downwards. Because we're using global position, we're only looking at the world X axis. Before we were using, I believe local, yeah, local. We were using local for these parts, for example, over here, to scale them outwards. But because we're using the world position, we can use the X in this case. All right, so what I'm going to do here, I think the thickness, I'm going to keep it the same. So it would look like it's made out of the same log, for example, or something of the sort. And now we can just figure out what exactly we're going to do with these parts. So I think we can just go ahead and do that. And that's already looking pretty good. And I'm just going to go ahead and click GZ, move it downwards a little bit. So this one maybe needs to go a little bit inwards. But in this case, you can see that this part over here doesn't really want to go stick onto the wall because this is diagonal type of a beam. We need to figure out how we're going to be setting these up to be supported by the wall. I'm going to go ahead and delete this and figure out with the first one and then move from there. So for starters, we definitely want this to be sticking in the centerpiece over here. For this part, however, we want to decide if, let's go ahead. I want to grab the face on the backside. The easiest way to do that is going to be by clicking isolation mode. So isolation is going to be the question mark next to the right shift on the keyboard. If we were to click that, the diagonal dash, we're going to go into isolation mode based on the selection. This allows us to just go into edit mode, click on the face at the back, and now we can go out of the isolation mode with that same button. And now we have the selection and we can move it around. If we're not sure about that, we can also click Alt Z, which gives us a, what's it called, ghost mode, I believe. It's actually just enabling X-ray. There we go. At the top right hand side, you can see that button. So this is what we're enabling it. And we're just using shortcut for that. So we can also do selection with that, but I prefer to go with the isolation mode. Either way, let's go ahead and decide how we're going to set this up. I think I'm just going to move this to the right, to the left. I'm going to get 2/3 into the setup. I think that's going to look quite nice with the overall beam. And now if I duplicate it, move this downwards, I think 3 beams is going to be quite all right. Let me just have a look. 3 beams is all right. I do want them to be up higher, so they wouldn't get in the way of, like, if we add some bags and whatnot, they wouldn't get in the way. The upper section requires more structural support, I reckon, anyways. Afterwards, we can go ahead and go into edit mode with all of them selected. And I will actually this time just use the X-ray mode, select each one of them individually and just click GY, move them up a little bit and see how they look like with that kind of a setup. And I think this looks quite nice. The beams, however, need to be slightly adjusted. Sorry, I need to make sure they're somewhat consistent with the setup. So there we go. I think that's quite nice. The upper end also needs, of course, the beams on this side. So the easiest way to duplicate it without any modifiers or anything of the sort is if we were to select it, click Shift D, GY, move it off to the side. We're going to duplicate it in regards to its pattern. But as you can see, it's not going to work in the same way because it's going, this beam over here is going the other way. So to mirror that, I can click S, Y, and we can scale it basically in that direction. And if we were to type -1, so -1, it's going to basically scale it in the opposite direction. So that's a pretty neat way of sorting that out in regards to the angles. We might need to adjust them individually though a little bit. Don't want to spend too much time again because we can always come back and adjust it afterwards when we're setting it up in more detail. I'm going to just maybe move them a little bit outwards like so. Again, not too worried about it too much. The reason being, again, is because we're going to come back to this. Now that we have this set up, I am a little bit concerned about this upper piece. I don't want to have too much support. If we look at a reference point, for example, I think it's also the case over here, though it's not quite as visible from this perspective. In essence, we have 3 beams over going like so. But if we rotate this, it's only going to have 1 beam on the top section over here, as the support overall is going to be supported from the other side for the building. We just want to make sure that it doesn't, imagine like if the wind is pretty harsh and whatnot, the wind wouldn't let it wobble this way. But in that way, the building is already going to have the full support on its back. So we just want an extra beam on its side. I'm going to make sure I duplicate the beam, click RY90. Oh, sorry, RY90. Yep. And then RZ90 to have a nice rotation. Put it up to the side, just like that. And finally, scale it a little bit inwards, just like that. like so. I think that's going to be looking pretty good actually. Maybe even lower it down so it wouldn't be on the same exact height as these ones. Maybe this one needs to be going a little bit inwards. All in all, that's looking pretty good so far. Okay, so in the next lesson, we're going to continue on with the setup. Thank you so much for watching, and I will be seeing you in a bit.